This video is to demonstrate how to update and post payments, charges, refunds, and adjustments to a patient's ledger using Simchart for the medical office. I am currently using the EHR exercises. Please make sure that you are in the appropriate location when completing your assignments. If they are the numeric assignments, make sure that you are clicking into the numeric assignment. If it is an EHR exercise or a billing project assignment, make sure you are entering into the EHR exercises. When completing a patient's ledger, this is a coding and billing exercise. Therefore, you would need to click on the coding and billing module located at the top portion of your Simchart screen. Once you have clicked on the coding and billing module, it will bring up your options. Notice in the dashboard on the left-hand column, you will have your super bill, ledger, claim, day sheet, reporting, and audit options. We have selected ledger to open your patient's ledger. Your screen will default with it minimized. You will need to click on the right-hand chevron to expand your ledger or transaction rows. This particular ledger, for example purposes, already has previous services and procedures that have been performed on previous encounters already posted to this patient's account. When you need to add transactions, whether they're charges, refunds, payments, or adjustments to the patient's ledger, in Simchart, you will need to click on Add Row. This will open a new blank row. You will need to select in the first column your transaction date. This is the date that you are entering or documenting the transactions that are taking place. Your date of service, however, may be the same or it may be a different date of service. This is the actual date that the service was performed. This is different from your transaction date. The transaction date may be the day that I'm entering, but if it was services that were performed prior to today, such as yesterday's date of service, and my transaction date would differ in that particular scenario. So for our date of service, we'll go ahead and just use today's date. You will need to select the provider that is performing the service. If you know the procedure code, you can go ahead and click and type that in there. So I'm going to just pick a procedure code out for us. Enter the charge amount for that particular service. This is located on the fee schedule. If you are not sure of the fee, Walden Clinic has provided their fee schedule. If you're using or have been provided a specific fee schedule of charges and procedures, then you will need to use that specified fee schedule. So I will enter our charge. There is no payment since this is a charge. Every line must have its own separate transaction line. So we want to enter our charges on a separate line. If the patient has indeed made a payment for whatever reason, and it's even done at the same time of the service being performed, we would need to click Add Row, select our transaction date, select the actual date of service that the payment is being made toward, select the provider. If it is a patient payment, then you would select the drop-down box, and this is where whether it is an insurance payment or a patient's payment or a patient's refund, you would use the drop-down box to select the appropriate transaction description. So if it is a patient's payment, Then you would select patient payment, and then you're going to distinguish the payment method, whether it's credit card, check, cash, or if it's a patient refund that the office is refunding monies back to the patient that were overpaid, then we would select patient refund. So for this example, we are first going to select patient's payment. If it was sent in because a patient statement was sent out previously, then of course it would most likely be check, or it could very well be credit card if they've provided the necessary information. We do not send cash through the mail. There is no charges because this is not a service being rendered, but a payment being posted to the ledger. You can click or tab over to the next column. If it is a payment, then we're going to enter our payment. So we'll say we have a payment of $32. They're going to pay for that service that was performed today in full. Notice how my balance went from $132, and it has subtracted the payment and reduced our balance due to $100. There is not an adjustment at this time. If there was, it would need to be entered on a separate transaction line. But you have to make sure you enter your zeros. Even though they are showing, you still want to manually enter those so that the computer knows it was not an oversight. If we have an insurance payment, you would do the same steps. You would add row, enter our transaction date, enter the appropriate date of service that we are making a payment on, select the provider that had performed that service. If it is a payment, then we're going to use our drop-down box to select insurance payment. There are no charges. If it is a payment and the payment was only $22, you enter the payment amount. If the insurance company has a write-off or an allowable amount, it will require a separate transaction line. So we would still enter 0 on our adjustments because we need to enter it on a separate transaction line. Select your transaction date again. It is for the same date of service, the same provider. So this is just the other portion of that insurance payment that we need to document. Still 0 charges. This time it's a 0 payment, but it is a $10 write-off or adjusted allowable. Now watch my current balance. Notice as of right now, my balance is the same. If I put in the $10 and I do not tell the adjustment column whether I'm adding it or subtracting it, you will notice that my balance, it will add it to it. It thinks it's wanting to increase that amount. If it is truly a write-off, we need to subtract it from the balance. So you have to put a negative sign in front of your adjustment balance. You will hit tab, and this time you notice that my balance has been reduced by the $10. If that patient's payment needs to be refunded, whether all of it or a portion of it, then we would do the same thing by entering another transaction. Select your transaction date, the date of service that you are refunding. Select the provider who had performed the service. And then this time, instead of insurance payment or patient's payment, you would actually select the refund. So it documents that we are refunding this money back to the patient. So it's 0 charges. And this one is going to be a 0 payment. While we are making a payment to the patient, that payment is not to the patient's balance. This would have to be an adjustment. And so notice how it took away this amount. So we've taken away $32 here. We've taken away $32 with the insurance company. So the patient, we need to put this $32 back into their account. So that's where we would have to enter an adjustment of $32 to add it back to that balance and putting them back to the $100 because the insurance paid the 132. So from where we began at 132, our patient paid 32, then our insurance paid another 32, and so we have to put back or increase that balance back to what it was so that it reflects the appropriate balance amount prior to all of this services and refunds and payments that took place on this date. So if it is a write-off amount and the balance or adjustment amount needs to be subtracted, make sure you put a negative sign in front of it. If it's a patient refund because of an overpayment, we need to add that payment back to the balance. Once you are complete and entered all of your transactions, adjustments, charges, and payments, you will click Save. And now you have the green bar that says you have successfully saved and updated your patient's ledger. This concludes how to update a patient's ledger by posting charges, posting payments, posting adjustments, and adjusting patient refunds in a patient's ledger.